The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Just like candy.
What's up, everybody? It's time for Ask for Candy. I'm trying to think of different ways to say hello when you guys come in. Hello, hello, hello. I don't know. I've always been saying what's up, and then I realized, because I watch a lot of YouTube, I'm that girl, that a lot of YouTubers say that, and a lot of them are like millennial age, and so, I feel a little silly that I'm always like, what's up? Could maybe come up with some more intelligent greetings. You guys got to let me know if you even care. Anyway, happy Monday, and welcome to Ask for Candy. I am so glad that you are here. As usual, I am trying to get situated on the Facebook to make sure that my Facebook peeps can tune in on the live. You have to bear with me while I get all my technical stuff together here. And, as usual, I'm like concerned, sharing and making sure that, okay, yeah, we're live on the Facebook. We're live on the Armed Radio. Hello, my Armed Radio people. Make sure that I'm in here, okay. In case anybody comes on the live and they want to comment during the course of the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ask for Candy, where we talk about healing, self-care, love, sex, relationships, and what it takes to be amazing on the daily. Daily amazingness. Who knew? Who knew it was a thing? Who I am, I'm CandiceHarperLoveCoach.com. I help hard-working women and couples who have survived abuse be vibrant, alive, magnetic, and passionate while creating healthy, intimate relationships. Tonight, I'm coming to you from the fabulous Teaneck, New Jersey, where it's beautiful out here. I mean, it's the fall. And if you're in the northeast of the United States, I know Armed Radio is global, so you could be anywhere in the world. But if you are in the northeast of the United States and the fall season is now happening, it's one of the most beautiful things when the leaves start to turn and they're all falling. And in Jersey, there's like tons and tons of deer. So I'm seeing deer all the time, which I absolutely love. I love the wildlife. We have lots of deer and squirrels and badgers and possums and all kinds of things running around. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful time of the year. Tonight, I just so happen to be in my Christmas look, which I did not plan. I'm just noticing now, because those of you who are on the audio, you can't see me. But those of you on the Facebook who can see me, I'm in like my red sweater. I got white curtains behind me. I'm looking very like bald Mrs. Santa. I don't know how that happened, but you know what? We roll with it. Anyway, it's beautiful here in Teaneck. It's the fall. And those of you who've been following along, you know that our theme all season long has been healing the mother-daughter relationship. And for a lot of the season, we were talking about mothers, daughters, or talking to mothers, daughters, healers, experts, anyone who wanted to come on and sort of contribute in this conversation of healing. And so we've had some very, very nice conversations, but then I decided to just start flying solo with it because I started to feel like, I like this. I like this time, this intimate time that we get together. I like to be able to sort of, interact with you, even though, did a couple things. I switched to my business page, and then I also decided to start doing the show alone. So that took the live viewership way down on the Facebook. I don't know what's going on in Armed Radio. If you guys are out there, you're listening. Sometimes you email me. Great. I love that. But I have no idea what's going on. I know people are watching later, which is perfectly fine. But the idea of doing this on my own and flying solo is just, being in a space of, if people want to talk to me, if they want to have a conversation with any of the topics that I'm talking about, then they're perfectly welcome to do that. If they don't, that's okay too. That's the power of social media and technology, is that you can always later, and if anything resonates with you, if you want to take any nuggets home with you. Monday night is the night I usually go live, but because of the power and the fantasticness of technology, accessible to you all week long. There's no obligation to be on Monday night. So yeah, tonight I'm flying solo to talk about the power of self-definition. Also, the 5 steps that you, I, or anybody can take to be self-defined, make sort of transitions into happiness and self-confidence and inner peace and all of that stuff that we really enjoy, that we really want. I do believe that that stuff comes through the ability to become. And you can do that without having to overhaul your entire life. I think a lot of times people resist the personal growth conversation and maybe resist transformation a little bit because sometimes it does feel like you have to change everything. And I won't lie and say that sometimes everything does change. When you decide to grow and change, yes, your life will change. Like people will move in and out of it. Usually it's the people that are no good for you that will go ahead and move out of your life. And you'll have new people come in who are good for you. And, your job might change, your relationships might change, when we decide to grow, that's what happens because that's what life is. Life is growth and change, evolution. Sometimes we want to resist it. Sometimes we feel like it's going to be hard if we fight it. Change is difficult because we resist it and we fight it and we don't want it to happen. So, that's why we have this conversation, because we don't want it to be difficult. Be able to go with the flow of life and surrender into the flow. So, like I said, tonight I'm going to be talking about 5 steps you can take to be self-defined and make transitions into happiness without throwing your life into upheaval. And a lot of what I'm talking about tonight is going to be in my upcoming book, I'm Not Mad, But She's Still Crazy, Getting Right with Mom for the Sake of My Love Life. I mentioned the book last week and probably some other weeks before. The book is going to be coming. So what I've been doing is sort of like sharing with you guys some, larger snippets of the content of the book, just so you could kind of check it out and see if it's something to your liking, might be interested in. I really think that if you have a dysfunctional mother-daughter relationship, and whether you're the mother or the daughter, you will benefit from what I am putting in this book. I benefited from it, and so, I feel obligated as a woman, as a coach, as someone who is committed to my own radical self-acceptance and growth, share what my experience was and what I experienced with a lot of my clients. That's all that's about. Last night, I got to go and see Michelle Obama at the Prudential Center. Hi, my Kenya. I knew you were coming, honey. Hi, honey. So last night at the Prudential Center, I saw Michelle Obama, which was an amazing experience. I don't care what your politics are. She's a classy lady. She's got a lot of wise nuggets to share. This is not a political show, so I'm not going to talk about the politics at all. She, as a woman, she had a lot of really moving, transformational things to share and to say. Hi, my Kenya. Kenya says hi. Hi, my love. I knew you were coming because you are my tried and true love, my friend. And it was a great experience. Now, if you're watching live or listening live on Armed Radio, or if you watch later and you stick around until the end, I'm going to share with you one of the major nuggets that Michelle Obama dropped last night that stuck with me. I mean, I know for everybody, different things resonate with you, but this was one that really, really stuck with me. So, but before we do that, happy Monday, everybody. Happy fall season if you're in the northeastern part of the United States, or, actually most of the United States fall, but we're in our particular northeastern weather, like I said. And maybe you are listening to Armed Radio on your smart device with the TuneIn app, or you're listening in the garden on armedradioglobal.com. We're also on iHeartRadio, so don't forget to follow us and download your favorite shows. And for people who like to stream, we're on Spotify and on Spreaker, or maybe you're live here with us on the Facebook like my Kenya. And tonight we're broadcasting from my business page. This is my new thing that I decided to do. I think I'm only going to try it for a couple of more Mondays because it's like more people magnetized to my personal page. more interaction on the live. Kenya, you know where to find me wherever I am. Make sure you always can find me. But we're going to see. We're going to try again for a couple more times on this business page to see if it works. I don't think the notifications work the same, because I think on a business page they want you to pay for notifications. But, whatever. Right now, what I should be doing, hold on, I forgot to share. I want to share to my timeline. Kenya, you should be sharing too if you want to, honey. If you share to your timeline, or you know of any groups that you want to share with, please, by all means. Posting it on. And then also, there's the Ask for Candy group, which I want you guys to join. If you're just listening out there, join the Ask for Candy group and join Armed Radio Group News, because that's a great group with lots of fantastic podcasts. You'll be able to tune in. Oh, all right. I just shared to the Ask for Candy group. Also, you can email me if you have any questions or there's any comments that you want to make. If you're shy, you want to have it be a little bit private, you can email me at askforcandypodcast@gmail.com. A lot of time I answer these questions in a later broadcast, or I even use them as topics. So feel free if you want to discuss anything. So yeah, get your sharing out. Got to do, even if you're watching later and it's not live anymore, share. Let the people know. Like I said, I'm Candace Harper, lovecoach.com. My talent is conversation, my passion is personal growth, and my purpose is to teach and inspire radical self-acceptance in myself and others so that we can all have our best possible love life. That's the overall goal right here. That is why this is a conversation. Here to hand down a bunch of dating and relationship rules, or rights and wrongs. Those of you who are of a certain age, you remember that book, The Rules, that came out, I want to say like in the 90s. And, there's so many books around relationships and dating, and, people have rules for what you're supposed to do, what you should and shouldn't do. And I think that's all a bunch of BS, because I think that all people are a field of possibilities. So you can't really set rules on this sort of thing. The one thing you can do, what do we have control over ourselves, right? The only thing you can do is figure out yourself, getting in a good relationship with yourself, getting squared away, getting healthy, feeling good, feeling confident, feeling whole, so that you can overflow onto somebody else, whatever that looks like for you. Some people that means, a lot of different things. Says, yep, I remember. You remember that terrible book. Sorry, ladies who wrote that book, but that was a terrible book. And there's been so many terrible books since then that set down all these dating and relationship rules. Anyway, so tonight and every Monday night, we're going to do what we do, which is have conversation that engages, enlightens, educates all of us in the areas of self-love, sex, relationships, and vibrating high. And I swear I didn't just clear my throat after the word sex for any sort of innuendo or any sort of reason. It just so happened to fit right in there. Clear my throat. And, I was saying earlier, tonight we're going to be talking about the power and the pleasure of self-definition. 5 steps to defining yourself that you can transition into, transform into feeling good in your life, feeling good, feeling inner peace without total life upheaval, like completely upheave your whole situation. Especially if you're already in relationships, if you have kids, things like that. Know that when certain things are in place, when we start talking about, change, making big changes and, doing this sort of thing in your life, it can be a little bit daunting. So we're not talking about it in those terms. But because I feel like it's important, always sort of like get on the same page about things so that we're, we know we're all talking about the same, or, know that we're sort of defining things or framing it. This whole thing about self-definition, like, we need to define self-definition. How do you define self-definition? Let's define it right now. I can tell you what I think it's not. Kenya, since you're on the live, if you want to say anything about what you think self-definition is not, we're going to start with what it is not. Then I'm going to talk about what it is in the context of this conversation. No one out there who's listening has to agree with me, but for the context of what I'm talking about here, this conversation, we're just going to set down some some ideas of, so that we know we're talking about the same thing. So that if we do disagree about it, which is totally perfectly invited and fine, that we're not disagreeing about what we're talking about in the sense of, that we're on completely different planes, just may differ in how we approach whatever it is we're talking about. So self-definition, what it isn't, for the context of this conversation, it is not rebelling or trying hard to rebel against something. Define yourself is not being attached to not being like something else. What I find a lot in the conversation of healing the mother-daughter relationship is a lot of times an abused daughter wants to do everything she can to not be like her mother. And, in the way that she lives her life, the way that she dresses, the way that she looks, the way that she raises her children, this is not what self-definition is. Rebellion thing where you're resisting and you're attached to not being someone or not being something, that is not what self-definition is. And it actually, we could do a whole nother show on why it doesn't work. But the second thing is trying hard to conform with something. So the rebelling or the conforming. So I'm sure that most of you are of an age where you've been to high school. If you've even been to high school, you know what conforming is. And even far beyond high school age, a lot of us end up in situations where we start to conform. And Kenya says, I think that self-definition is not about the opinions about me that others try to impose on me. Yes, honey. Hitting the nail on the head. Exactly. I'm going to I have something that's similar to that. Yes, it is absolutely not about the opinion about you that others try to impose on you. Yes. It almost becomes like a paradox. So conforming is the same thing as rebelling. It's just on the opposite end of the actions. So if I'm trying very hard to be like, whether it's the neighborhood that I live in, how how sometimes you'll go into a neighborhood and all the wives look the same. Everybody has long, straight blonde hair. Everybody's a size 2, and there's very few people who break the norm. So there, when you have groups of people, psychology is a conformist psychology. So that clearly, obviously, is not self-definition in the context of what we're talking about. What we do to ourselves from the outside in. So, whether it's that you shave your head or you have a lot of tattoos or how you dress or, all of those things are not self-definition. They can support you in expressing who you choose to be, but we don't define ourselves by what we look like on the inside. It's that cliche, like you don't judge a book by its cover. So, when we're talking about self-definition and how it can transform and work in your life, what we're not talking about is what you do to your external. And like Kenya said, taking on someone else's idea of who we are. So a lot of times we do this subconsciously. And, I grew up with a mother who assigned certain things to me. Siblings. So you're the one who's good at this, you're the one who's good at that, you're the one who can do that, you're not so good at that, this is you, this is not you. And a lot of parents, I think, do that with their children. And it's, I don't think it's it's an innocent thing. Like, it's like, oh, I see these certain traits in you, so I'm going to cast this label on you. And so a lot of times we take on that label and that becomes sort of our life's trajectory. Like, oh, well, I think I talked about it a couple weeks ago. Or my mother was like, you're creative, but you're not good at math. Or I talked about it on some other podcast. You're creative, you're not good at math. So, and in taking on that label, that was kind of how I steered my life for a long time. Oh, I'm the creative one. I can't do math. That's not my thing. And that showed up in how I approached math classes in college and, even how I deal with money or, when it comes to having to do that sort of thing. I have this set of beliefs that has it be a certain way in my life when in fact a different, as I change my beliefs, I have a different experience with how I approach being able to be good at math. So like Kenya said, and like I just said, taking on someone else's belief of who we are is not self-definition. The last one I have, and Kenya, if you have another, feel free. Being attached to our self-descriptions turning them into our identity. So this one, I feel like, so many of us do it so subconsciously. I mean, I know I do it, and it's just such a thing by rote. It's that thing where we're like, oh no, I wouldn't do that. No, that's not, I'm not that type of person. I'm just one of those type of people who can only do this way, or can only do that way. And, one of the examples that comes to mind is like, I say that I'm somebody who's afraid of snakes. Afraid of snakes. I'm afraid of snakes. That's my identity. Don't bring snakes around me. But if you had a tank full of snakes and you could assure me that none of them were poisonous, and you told me there was $1 billion underneath those snakes, there was an envelope with $1 billion underneath it, I could figure it out and get over my fear of snakes in order to get what I wanted. And I say that to say, I illustrated that way to say that a lot of times we decide on an identity for ourselves, and it limits what we can do, or it opts us out of certain things because we just don't want to do whatever it is that's required. I don't want to touch snakes. I don't want to be around snakes. So to take on the identity of I'm afraid of snakes, that gives me an easy out. It gives me an excuse not. That's not self-definition. That's just, taking on an identity, which, if I wanted that $1 billion and it was under snakes, it wouldn't be workable for me to have that identity. Right? And so we do that a lot, especially around dating and relationships. We'll be like, oh, well, I can't be with no man who, makes less than 6 figures, or I can't be with somebody who, chews their food a certain way or whatever. But then all of that stuff goes away if there's something about them that has a higher stake and is more attractive, to us, or meets some other need that we want to have met, we can get over it. But if that person, we're not attracted to that person, we'll find any little thing we can, and we'll take that on as like, that's just who I am. I can't have that. Kenya says, I'm so guilty of that. I've told myself and others that I'm a certain type of person, and I've been living up to that persona. You're not the only one. We all do it on some level, because it's also a little way of kind of controlling the atmosphere, controlling what goes on. And, when we're attached to our ways, we don't realize how those ways can get in our way, how they can actually stop us from either connecting with people, or they change our experience, right? We think it's our way of sort of controlling. I say all of that to say that, getting attached to identity in that way is not self-definition. Not in the context of what we're talking about, and not what we're looking to try to do in order to increase the peace, increase the inner happiness. Woo! Now we're almost halfway through already, and I still got so much to give you. I'm trying to get better about the fire hosing thing. Trying to get better overall with my podcasting style. I've been listening to other podcasts. So just trying to figure out like what it is people really want to interact with. I mean, I still got to be true, self-definition. I still got to be true to what I want to talk about, what I need to say, because that's what's, moving through me. But I listen to these other podcasts just to kind of get a feel for like, how's the pace supposed to go? And I can't help but fire hose you guys. Because I get to thinking about all this stuff. I get to writing about it, and I write all my little notes down. And, I say all of that to give you a little bit of a break, breathe, and take all that in. We now know what self-definition is not for the sake of this conversation. If you have anything else you can say about what, feel free. You're basically like my digital co-host at this point. All right, so now let's talk about what self-definition actually is for the context of this conversation. The first thing I wrote down is it's understanding the power of our beliefs. Understanding the power of our beliefs. So I was talking a little bit earlier about how, if you believe certain things, and I was talking about believing that I was bad at math. So in believing that I was bad at math, I took certain actions, I did certain things that represented the belief of being bad at math. So whether it was that I avoided taking certain credits in college, avoided getting really organizational with my finances, avoided what it meant to figure out sales projections for my business, or, you know, what it even meant to deal with business finances or understand it. Struggled with understanding how to do taxes, because in the back of my mind, there was this story that I'm bad at math. That was the belief that I had, and our thoughts give rise to our actions. So what self-definition actually is having an understanding that I am who I believe I am. Like that I have the power to believe about myself what I need to believe about myself to do what it is that I want to do. And just in the way that I limited myself by believing that I couldn't do something, I can also expand myself by believing that I can. You know, that sounds so like, you know, Tony Robbins motivational, but this is what self-definition is about. Like changing and developing my beliefs so that they work for me rather than work against me. So yeah, understanding the power of our beliefs. I really want you guys to like get that one. We get very attached to our beliefs, like our identities. We think that what we believe, what we think is true is fact, and it's 100% true, especially after we do it for a few years, a few decades. We end up getting limited and stopped in ways that we might not necessarily mean to get limited and stopped. Right. So the second sort of concept for what self-definition is for this conversation in this context is it's identifying and developing our core values. So wait, what'd you say, Kenya? Kenya says, I believed that I had to be a certain way so that people would think of me as a good person. I love that, Kenya. Yes. I feel like that is really common too. Like thinking that we had to, you know, I know for us growing up, it was always being polite and acting like ladies, and, you know, how we would behave in other people's houses. And all that was so important, like having good manners and, you know, just all those things that we do, especially as women, but men do it too, like apologizing for yourself, being afraid to take up space. Like so many of those things that come out of just believing that that's what we're supposed to do. And so the actions that we take support that. So if we think we're not supposed to speak up, we're not supposed to take up space, that can really be very unworkable in certain situations, especially, you know, if we decide that we want our lives to get bigger, or we want to expand in any kind of way, or we want to actually be able to live authentically. If we want to be able to tell the truth about how we feel, or, you know, who we are in the world, or what's going on with us, and really share with someone and develop intimacy with other people, you got to be able to tell the truth about what's going on with you. But if your belief is that, you know, what's more important is that you're quiet, or it's more important that you be polite, or Kenya says, I'm always apologizing for myself. Like exactly, like if that's what we believe we're supposed to do, that's really going to get in the way of, you know, being able to show up like you want to show up, and be authentic and be honest, be outspoken, be a stand for yourself, right? So yeah, that's a big part of self-definition, is believing, is understanding the power of your beliefs, and understanding how our beliefs give rise to our action. That way, you know, you can change your beliefs when you need to, make them work for you rather than against you. Next is identifying and developing our core values. So yeah, identifying, developing your core values. Like what is truly important to you as a human being? What are things that align with who you say you want to be? For some people, it's family. Like if I'm someone who's like, you know, I know that I want to raise a brood of great children who do great things in the world, and I'm aligned with that, I'm purposeful about that. Family is a core value. And so if I'm meeting someone, partnering with someone, getting in a relationship with someone, forming a friendship with someone, what is going to have our friendship bond is that shared core value. Like this is how we both see it. We both really believe in family. Or for some people, it's contribution to the world. Being a big contributor to the world is a core value. Like it's very important to me to show up in the world and help other people, be a support to other people. Like all of that is core value stuff. Being a success could be a core value, whatever you're defining success as. But if you're saying that, you know, building big things means something to me, or being active means something to me, being healthy. Like, those are all things that are core values. So understanding, identifying, developing, choosing what's important to us just because we can, that's part of self-definition. It says, you have taken that pressure from me, always my true self around you. I love that, Kenya. I love that. Thank you for that. And, by you saying that, I also feel the same way about you. I feel like, that is part of my purpose in the world. I want everybody to feel like they can just be themselves unapologetically. I work on, being able to be myself unapologetically. I fall short of it because I lean back into my old conditioning, which is be polite, step back and let somebody else get whatever it is, or like compromise when I don't want to compromise. Your contribution to the world is appreciated so much. Oh, honey. I appreciate, why I appreciate you so much, Kenya? This is Mutual Admiration Society. The reason I appreciate you so much because you are like that voice. You know how they always say, like, if you're delivering a message, you just need that one person to acknowledge that they get it, or to hear it, to know that it's worth it to be doing it. Because I know a lot of people come back and they'll watch the video later, or, they may or may not have an opinion about it. They may watch 2 seconds of it. They may get nuggets about it. They may not, and they give absolutely no feedback. And I don't do it for feedback, so I don't really care. But, it does mean something, though, to have somebody say what you're doing is not falling on deaf ears, and what you're doing has made a difference for me, because otherwise, what's the point of it? Like, the idea is to have somebody feel supported. But just to know that you feel supported lets me know that other people feel supported, and then I feel supported, and it's, feels really good. It's awesome. So yeah, identifying and developing our core values, and then also choosing what we want to align with. So that's what self-definition is as well. Like, what do you want to be aligned with? You think about, I think about like different relationships that I've been in the past, where I wasn't sure what I wanted to be aligned with, and I had no idea. And so it was always a crapshoot. Like, there was a couple people that I was in relationship with. We had a great time. It was wonderful while it lasted. Had no direction. We didn't know where it was going, but, it lasted as long as it lasted, and then that was it. And then there was other people where it was like, what in the world was I thinking? I wasn't thinking because there was no direction. I didn't know what I was trying to align with. I didn't know what my core values were. I mean, at least not in a conscious way. I kind of knew what I felt was important, but, I really hadn't gotten present to what my core values were. I wasn't self-defined. I definitely wasn't defining myself. So, it's such a catch-22, because it's, choosing what you want to align with is part of becoming self-defined. It is self-definition, but find yourself, you have to choose what you want to align. It's very cyclical in that way. When you don't choose what you want to align with, it's kind of like you're rolling the dice, which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's usually what's happening when you're young and you're growing and you're learning. But, we're talking about how do you get to self-definition. But we can maybe stop rolling the dice a little bit and really align and get into unconditional love with ourselves. So it's also choosing our purpose. Self-definition is choose. And I choose the word choosing very intentionally, because I think the misconception about purpose is that it's something that we're supposed to go and find, and, that we've got to take journeys through the desert and figure out, like the alchemists, figure out puzzles, and that it has to be, that purpose is something that has to be showed upon us or searched out, or that, it's somewhere out there beyond us. When in fact, we what our purpose is based on what our life's journey has been. All that takes is the letting go of the resistance of what goes on within us, because your inner self will tell you what will make you feel purposeful. Your inner self will tell you, just by what feels good when you do it, what makes a difference for you, what aligns with your core values, what, makes you feel lit up. Like the finding of the purpose is something that is completely within, and it's a choice that we can make. I always use this equation. Our purpose is where our talents, passions meet our challenges, or it's one place that it can be found, right? Because there's lots of looking within, there's lots of options. So I know that I am a talented conversationalist. I'm talented at connecting people together. I'm talented at doing a social situation going, or hostessing people, or setting up some sort of atmosphere or event. Passionate about connecting with people, passionate about supporting people in what they want to do, helping people get to the heart of whatever is going on with them. Very passionate about that. One of my biggest challenges was being able to connect with people in a way that they could see that in me, and that I could see things in them, and we could develop intimacy and develop healthy relationships. So in being on my own journey of learning how to do that, and overcoming the past that was stopping me from doing it, I got to discover that I feel most purposeful when I'm helping other people also overcome that challenge. So I chose this as my purpose. Now there's other grander purposes in life, right? So it's like organ donation, like that we don't necessarily have control over. Sometimes we are purposeful in ways that we don't even know. Things that we do that cause shifts and changes and big things in other people's lives that, and we don't even know. We have no idea the amount of change that we're affecting. However, what we're talking about for self-definition is that you can also choose what your purpose is. Because I'm still trying to figure out what my purpose is. I get that, honey, because, that's part of life's journey. And there is nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, it's to be in the exploration of what is my purpose, or what do I want my purpose to be, to choose that for yourself and to trust yourself to choose it. I mean, that's what this work is, to get to a point where you have that kind of faith in yourself and that ability to listen to your own inner knowing, your own intuition, and your own gut. Because I'm sure that your gut talks to you. I know you talk about, your writing and things like that, and things that you're talented at, and visions that you want to see for your life. To work with me, I do a whole exercise that helps to discover the purpose, uncover the purpose, say, and then make a choice based on what's going on the. But yeah, that's part of life's evolution, right? Part of this whole self-definition thing. It's like, how willing am I to just choose this thing for myself? Not waiting for approval, not waiting for permission. How willing am I just to go ahead and just choose? That's something to think about, Kenya. I know you say you're still trying to figure it out, but what are you not giving yourself permission to choose? Let yourself know that whatever it is, it can be whatever you choose for it to be. You don't have to wait. There's nothing outside of you that's going to tell you or give you permission. What you're not willing to tell yourself. So then the last one for what self-definition actually is the taking of our rite of passage and growing ourselves up. Oof. And this one's the hard one, because this is kind of what I'm going to talk about with the 5 steps, right? So self-definition is actually growing ourselves up. Dr. Shefali, who's she writes about child rearing, and Oprah's people. She writes a lot of books about proper parenting and things like that. She says the best possible thing that a parent can do is to grow themselves up. Well, what does she mean by that? Like Kenya says, right? Not waiting for approval or permission. That's key for me. Absolutely. And that's key for everybody. Don't feel alone in that. We do. We all sit and wait for approval and permission. A big part of this whole self-definition conversation I'm going to talk about in the 5 steps. But yeah, what does it mean to grow yourself up and take your rite of passage? Let go of your victimhood. Let go of it, release it, heal it, heal it, heal it, heal it, heal it. Whatever you can say can happen to you, even the most traumatic of things. whatever happened in the past, as long as it is informing what you are choosing for yourself today, are giving it your power. You're giving your power away. And that's not to invalidate anybody's experience or their feelings or what they've gone through, but it is in the healing and the releasing of blame and the taking ownership of the fact that I can make decisions for myself. I can choose for myself. I don't even want to use make decisions because that's too limiting. I can choose for myself. I can be who I want to be just as a matter of my word and my alignment. That is owning my life, and that is taking my rite of passage, and that is growing myself up. Not about what mama said. It's not about what daddy said. It's not about what the teacher said. Talk about those things because those are the things that we normally need to heal, and that's why I talk about healing the mother-daughter relationship. But the rite of passage and the growing ourselves up is all about getting out of a blame story. So, you can't say, well, my mom was a drug addict, so that is why now in my life I can't have any of the things. I don't know how to believe in myself. It may be true that you don't know how to believe in yourself because your mother was a drug addict and didn't teach you, but now you have an opportunity to learn how to believe in yourself. Right? Going forward, you have an opportunity to develop a new set of beliefs. I'm not saying this like it's an easy light switch and it's nothing. You don't have to go through your process and all of that. But the openness and the willingness to know that you can take ownership if you're willing to do it, willing to go through the process, is what has you have a different experience. Right? And so that's what these 5 steps are about. And we're already at 8:44. That much? Damn, I talk a lot. Anyway, side note, before I get into the process about the 5 steps, I started vlogging, which I did years ago, and then I kind of... Kenya says, I hear you. I'm healing from being a victim. It's baby steps, but it's coming along. That's all it has to do, honey, is come along at your own pace and in awareness. You're aware, and like we all have a victim story, and we can all lean on it. I lean on my victim story sometimes. I'm like, just my whole thing about math. My mama told me I wasn't good at math, and that's why it's so hard for me to get my money right. Like, that's a victim story. That's a story that it's like, no, you're of an age where you can grow yourself up around it. You can believe something new and have a new experience with it, and that's what I've had to do. But it takes practice. It takes hard practice. So, just keep in mind, you still want to love and be gentle with yourself. You still want to give yourself the space to grow through it. But you got to do it if you want to have a different experience, right? It's willingness. That's all good, but you got to do it if you want to have a different experience. I just noticed the light change. I thought something was going on behind me. But then the light changed, and I was like, oh shit, are the curtains on fire? No, the curtains are not on fire. Yeah, I digress. So now I got to do what I always do because I talk too much, is crunch in these last 5 steps of how we can become self-defined. And Kenya, if you hear anything in it and you want to stop me, go ahead. And Kenya said you did talk that much. I can't help it. Because what it do is why I podcast. Because if I didn't podcast, just imagine I have friends that I talk to. When I talk to my friends, it's like I'm fire hosing them. And then I spend most of the day trying to create content and stuff like that. And I'm alone a lot. And I don't have a dog no more. I don't have nobody to do all this talking with. So, whatever. I end up fire hosing you guys, those of you who come and listen to the podcast. Anyway, so the 5 steps to become self-defined. Step number 1, we got to feel and we got to process that pain. So I was talking about letting go of that victim story. The only way to let go of the victim story is to feel and process the pain and the trauma. And I know that sounds so scary and frightening, and that's why people do drugs and they drink and they, shop too much and get in bad relationships and, try to distract and do everything else. And some people, they do it on the healing journey. Like they're, at every ashram and they're, getting things done to their body and poking holes in themselves and listening to shaman and, sweating it out in a lodge and smoking it and doing whatever they possibly can to take care of this pain and have something else take it away, whether it's something I put in me or have done to me or whatever. When in fact, we are human beings. And so everybody's so afraid that by feeling their pain and feeling their feelings that they're going to be a victim. And what makes us a victim is not the willingness to feel our pain. It's the willingness it's when we won't let go of our pain. So when you try to stuff it down, hang on to it, hang on to that resentment, hang on to that blame, rather than let the feelings process out, that's what makes us a victim. We stay in that story of having the pain. Kenya says it is so necessary to do that. Face the pain and process it and let the healing begin. Exactly. Cliche, it's rhymey, which some people like a rhymey personal growth coach, but feel it to heal it. You gotta feel it. You gotta admit it. You gotta admit that it happened. So many people who've been through trauma and been through pain and just this very speaking of it. And in a safe space, obviously, like whether it's with a professional or a growth community or people who will care about you and not have emotional stake or won't judge you or, have something harsh around it or don't know what to do with it. You want to speak your shit in a safe space. You want to share it. You want to allow it. You want to let it run its course. Cry those tears, people. We don't want to cry those tears because we think that's what makes us a victim. No, it's the uncried tears that make us a victim, because it turns into anger and, crazy spurts of rage and then, all kinds of problems compiled on problems that we then want to blame on someone else, blame on someone else's behavior. Kenya says, it is so necessary to do that, face the pain. I learned that from dealing with narcissistic people. Absolutely. And here's the thing about dealing with narcissistic people. When we don't process our pain behind that, we also become narcissistic people, because part of being narcissists are victims. Narcissists think that it's the external world's fault. Narcissists do not take responsibility or ownership over anything. If something is wrong, it's the external world that is at fault. So that's why abusers or abused people become abusers. Because if we don't heal our victim story, we start to feel like it's the world's responsibility, it's the world's fault to, make it better, make the change, to make a different experience for us. So yeah, let it run its course. Feel it rather than fearing it. You are strong enough for your pain. You are strong enough to get through it. If you don't think you are, imagine, especially, think about how long you've been walking around with it and the fact that it hasn't killed you. It could kill you in the end, because it does cause disease and all sorts of things and all sorts of beliefs in your mind that don't work. But if you've been walking around with it for this long, imagine if you just let yourself process it. If you let yourself process it, it's not going to take you down. If you keep holding on to it, you're going to be fighting with it your whole life, or as long as you hold soapbox. And now I got to go faster because I still got 4 more steps. Number 2, forgive the past so that we can release our victim identity. So now you've felt your pain. You've allowed it. You've processed it. You're feeling it to heal it, right? So now you got to be willing to forgive it. Got to be willing to forgive the traumatizers and the abusers and I talk a lot about forgiveness. I talk about the forgiveness process. People are so confused. There's so many misconceptions around forgiveness. It's not about pretending like nothing happened, invalidating your feelings and acting like you live in a Norman Rockwell painting. That's not what forgiveness is. You've been sold a bill of goods if that's what you still believe that it is, and if you're still resenting it or resisting it because of that. Forgiveness is about taking ownership about the choices that we make after we've been traumatized that keep us traumatized over and over and over again, long after the abuser has either moved out of our lives or has moved on, or life has changed and we're not still in the same situation. So what forgiveness is it's taking hold of that. It's taking hold of those decisions that we made, those choices that we made, And it's understanding that we can change our thoughts and beliefs around it and make them workable as opposed to not workable. Sorry, I'm fire hosing you, but I'm running out of time. And it's a whole process, which I could do a whole show about what forgiveness really is. Number 3, choose what's most important to you. Remember, we were talking about core values earlier. So this is the number 3 step in becoming self-defined. Once you've let all that past shit go, once you are out of that victim story, or you are at least practicing being out of your victim story, you can start focusing on what does work for you, what really is there for you, what really makes a difference in your life. Kenya says, keep going. Thank you, Mama. You get to really start to focus on, what you want to build and, who you want to be in this world, regardless of whatever happened in the past. Because everybody's got some shit. Don't look at somebody else and be like, oh, they got all that stuff because they didn't have to deal with whatever. Don't go there because you don't know what somebody else had to deal with. It's like, let me just look at myself and clean my own slate so that I can now start creating from a clean slate, a clean canvas. So, I love what it feels like to start on a fresh piece of paper. Whether it's building a family, creating a business, peace, whatever it is, get clear about what's most important to you. Now that you're clearing that other stuff out of the way, now that you're doing your forgiveness process, now you get to focus on what's important to me. Because especially if you've come from abuse, no one cared. No one was asking you what was important to you. No one was having you talk about what your deep, most innermost desires were or your wants if you came from abuse. No one was asking you those questions. So now you get to do that. Just because you can. In your adult life and growing yourself up, you get to say, what is important to me? What means something to me? What do I want to devote my life to? I get to choose just because I get to choose. And it doesn't matter what somebody told me in the past. Number 4, get purposeful. We had that whole conversation about purpose, right? So choose a reason for being rather than waiting for something external of you to tell you why you exist. Own yourself. Own yourself. Choose it. Choose what you want it to be. Make it what you want it to be. Don't wait for anybody's permission because no one will ever give you permission. Even those who've given themselves permission, like myself, I could give you support. I could give you, if you came to me and I could give you steps like I'm doing right now. I could give you encouragement. I could give you motivation, but I can't give you permission. Only you can give yourself permission. Do what it is that you need to do that's going to make a difference and have, living in alignment with something that's bigger than you are so that you're not just in your little bubble, bad neighborhood in your own head, that it's all about me and there's nothing outside of me and victim story. We got to go bigger than we are, right? Getting purposeful is also about. And then the last step is to develop a self-care routine that gives you what you want the world to give you, unconditional love. Unconditional love. Get a self-care routine that makes you feel good. And I'm not talking about just the spa stuff, the stuff you do on the outside, that kind of self-care. I'm talking about find yourself a support community that's also doing the same thing. Part of your self-care is to process the healing and the feeling. And all of this stuff is a cycle. You keep going around and around and around. Always going to be something new to feel and heal. Always going to be something new to forgive. Always going to be something, to make important to yourself, or, things that come in that feel like they're important. Oh, my bad. That feel important, that you want to feel important. That stuff's going to keep coming around and you're going to keep wanting to get purposeful as you evolve through life. This is all cyclical stuff. Just know that it is part of the growth and the cycle of life. And if you want to live your life to the fullest, it is worthwhile to give yourself an opportunity to do this process. And once you're crystal clear about who you want to be on this earth, practice this alignment at every moment possible and give yourself a break, because it's not a perfect science. It's just practice. It's like a yoga practice. The more you do it, the more flexible you get. Okay, we're at 8:56 already. Damn, this hour goes so fast. So I still have just a few more things that I want to tell you guys about before we have to go. Namely, I mentioned earlier, I'm blogging again, so I'm actually going to be doing like little short videos that are going to be on the same channel on YouTube with these. I'm going to edit these podcasts, and because you guys who are on Facebook don't get to hear the intro and the outro music and stuff like that. So I'm going to edit these together with the intro and the outro music, and then I'm also doing short vlogs, so you guys can actually see me applying this stuff to my real life. I'm doing my own evolution. I want you guys to see how I apply it to my life and what I do each week. things that come up, little highlights. I'm just going to be, videoing, and I'll be with different people. This week I was with my friend Vanessa. We went to see Michelle Obama, I mentioned. So you're going to be tuning into the YouTube channel, Ask for Candy. That's one thing. The book coming up, I'm Not Mad, But She's Still Crazy, Getting Right with Mom for the Sake of My Love Life. The Epic Intensive, I believe the new date is going to be starting in January. If you want to join the group of 12 women, if you're an abused daughter, raised by an abused daughter, the registration for Epic Intensive is going to be opening up, I believe, in December. EPIC stands for Empowering Practice for Intimate Connections, and the focus is getting right with mom for the sake of your love life. It's 8:58. Follow me on Instagram at Ask for Candy Podcast. To Armed Radio people, definitely follow me on Instagram. And also follow me at Candy Love Coach. And then also on December 8th, I'm once again partnering with my good friend, my favorite chef, Chef Keisha Ogaldez. She's doing an event called Winter and Wild. And I don't know if you guys know about my VAMP class, Vibrant, Alive, Magnetic, and Passionate. I'll be teaching a VAMP class, which is a movement and meditation class, and lots of transformation. And then Chef Keisha is like making all this delightful, healthy food. And it's a Women's Day. It's all about feminine energy. Kenya, I want you to come. It's out in Red Hook. It's going to be December 8th. So mark your calendar. Give yourself a day of self-love, self-care, no kids. So with Armed Radio people, we only have 1 minute left. Armed Radio people, you make sure you go to that YouTube. I want to tell you, never forget you're a love machine. If you ever start to feel like you're not getting the love you need, just make more and then ask for candy. And then I want to share Michelle Obama's nugget of wisdom. Last night, Michelle Obama talked about checking all the boxes, and that her life was very much about checking all the boxes, meaning that as she was growing up, she got good grades, she went to a good school, she did all the things that were the standards that she was supposed to meet, and she thought that that's what life was about, checking all the boxes. And I think she said it was up until she met Barack Obama, and when they fell in love, what she realized about him is that he was not about checking any of the boxes. He just was, fulfilling his purpose and living into what he wanted to live into. Like I said, this is not a political conversation, so I don't give a shit about your politics. But the whole point of it was that what she got through her partnership with him is what it meant to not just check the boxes, but to also live into who you are and live into what's important to you. And it can't just be about being the wind under someone else's wings. It's also about, being able to be 100% who you are and having things that are important to you. One thing that I've done, I've not been a box checker. I've checked minimal boxes. And I've always let my life be about, not being the wind under anyone else's wings and doing